Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you and give you a super exciting welcome to our first in-person Mass Aggie that we've been able to hold in quite some time since that which must not be mentioned occurred. And not only is it our first in-person Aggie in a really long time, this is our first ever hybrid Aggie. So we've got some folks joining us online, and I would like to give a huge thank you to Dr. Elsa Petit for being brave to be our guinea pig. And working out some of the kinks in a hybrid session. So Dr. Petit comes to us by way of UC Davis, where she did her PhD.
Yeah.
She did her undergrad in France,
Yeah.
and she has been working in grapes for
many years.
Too many.
Not too many, but
we won't put a number on that. But at any rate, so today, Elsa, take it away.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody. So already Liz explained a little bit of who I am, and I'm Elsa Petit. So my appointment is 3 ways, and so I'm part of the extension team that organizes the Mass Aggie. Especially, I focus on grapes. I have a Grape Notes newsletter. It's free to subscribe if you're interested in getting news every month during the off season and every other weeks during the season. And you can get out of the list anytime. Get a lot of emails. So I'll put a link at the end for that. And also, I'm part of twilight meetings and field days, webinar, etc. So my education also touched upon that. I did my master in France in the School of Engineering Agronomy in Bordeaux. Wines live there. And then I came to the West Coast, UC Davis, to study more grapes and especially plant diseases, so both. And now I'm a senior lecturer at UMass. I teach classes in plant disease and in grape production, fruit production, really, among them grapes. And my research is on plant and microbial production, so related to those classes and extension. Okay. All right, and this is us in the field last when it was not looking like today, very sunny, and I had the same T-shirt. I always put this T-shirt because it's a T-shirt with part of black birch. I don't know if you know. This is racially organized, but it's the owner of the vineyard I work with in so if you get a chance to visit Black Birch, it's a very nice place. When do you prune, right? When you prune grapes, and actually, this is really interesting because in certain places they prune to avoid diseases and to make sure. Oh, I have to be close to the owl. Oh, okay. Can you hear me on the? Okay, I'll stay here. So when you prune, here people, you can do it all along between, December and the last time to do it is in March, right? Like before, we don't want the bud to break. But the thing is, you have to think about 2 things. So if you prune too early, you might then hit cold snap, and then you cannot adjust your pruning because then you lost grapes and you cannot adjust that. We cover how we adjust pruning later. And if you do it too late, then or like when it's too warm, you might get seeds going into the pruning wounds. And if you do it in the middle of the season when it's cold, it's going to take maybe longer to heal the pruning wound. So it's hard to win with that. Some people do double pruning, so because they want to make sure they have the time to do pruning, or if they have a lot of time to prune, they start in December, they finish in March. But really, if you don't have a lot, it might be better to do it like now or February when it's, I would say here when it's, that you kind of try to limit the damage of cold. So you still might have some cold snaps, but less chances. And so I would say, February is the best time probably if you think you have enough time to finish on time. Okay, so the reason people spread it out is more because they don't have the time. So they start December and anyway. Okay, so I just want to touch upon, because many people here are in New England. We are all in New England, but people online might be from further away. But those principles that, this chapter on grapes in New England applies to all viticulture, is relevant to viticulture. So that's why I like to give you a little bit of background if you don't know about that. So in general, we are talking about the genus Vitis, divided in two different genera, Vitis, so the true Vitis, which is the grapes we are dealing with here, and then Muscadina, which is something we're seeing in the South, the Carolinas, or places like that, when it's a more of a tropical version, okay? So what happened is grapes were domesticated about 6,000 years ago. This is a Vitis vinifera wild in Europe, climbing a tree, and this might sound familiar. If you have here, I have it all over my garden, and you try to get rid of it, and your tree. But we have a lot of white grapes here. So that's why I say that here, because we don't realize we have many, many white grapes, and they are interesting to study. So 6,000, 8,000 years ago, in Europe, they had one species called Vitis vinifera. Vinifera, it means you can, fera, it means in Latin, make with, so you make, and vini, wine, so you make wine with that grape. Silvestris, because that species, that subspecies, is the one found in forest, so Silvestris is found forest. So that occurs naturally, that one species or subspecies occurs naturally in all the Mediterranean. So this is the Mediterranean here, and you can see in gray where are those subspecies in the wild. So where you would see those climbing like we see here. And so it's interesting to think about what's now when it comes to the spring or the summer and fall, you can observe now here maybe in your garden or the surrounding some of those white grapes. Right? So you might see that, and this is the case here in Europe, but this would be the same here. We have the white version, not domesticated version here, and here we have on this side the domesticated version. Okay, so what do you see that is interesting? If you compare the leaf, you compare the flower is not so interesting, right? But anyway, it's tiny. You compare the cluster, the cluster, definitely we have been domesticated, something that of course gives us bigger berries and fuller clusters. And also pruning will help with that, even so if you are not pruning, you would get less full clusters because the energy of the grapes spread too many fruits. One thing I just want you to notice is that here the flower is hermaphrodite, so it has male and female in one, which is about 2-3% of naturally what happened in the wild. So people have been naturally going for those and growing those because it's easier than growing just every other grapes gives you fruits. So one male, one female, and only the female would give you fruits, right? So and also there is issue with getting enough pollen, right? So all the grapes we domesticated, some exception, the variety we are growing, they all have hermaphrodite grapes. So that makes our life easier. This is the center of origin of the European grapes, okay? So Georgia, beautiful regions, I haven't been. And here, you're not able to see everything and to read those dots, or at least I'm not able to. If you have good eyes, maybe. The point here I want to make is kind of a genealogy tree here of all of the varieties of the European grapes. And so all of those varieties were, coming down to one ancestor, which is Traminer, through genetic analysis. But the point here is that you see you have many varieties. Maybe I said 50, but it's small. Many varieties, so Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, all of those grapes. But it's only one species. So we have very little genetic variation in Europe. Even so, we have many varieties. The reason is we domesticated them for a long time. Okay? Now in North America, we have about half of the species that are existing wild in the world. So we have a lot of variation in our grapes here, in our white grapes. So this is actually why I study grapes here, because this is a center of diversity. So we have new hybrids, I test new hybrids in the field, and we have a lot of potential. We have much more genetic variation to work with than they have in Europe. So, but we just need to work with it. So it's very nice because it's unexplored. So here, if you look at this slide again, it's you can't read all the names, but the point here is just to show you the number of species in the wild. In the Northeast here, you have about 30. And here in Asia, you have about 30 as well. And in the middle here, in the Mediterranean, we have only one species. Okay, so compare the genetic diversity and how much potential we have here. So here is just the same thing, kind of to give you the idea, to make the point again that this is a genealogy tree of the all grapes of all the world, right? The grape species. And you can see North America has quite a bit of variation here, right? So this is all the variation in North America versus Asia here. And then Muscadina is in North America, but it's interesting. It's kind of different, so it just sticks out genetically. So the legend says that they came here, the European came here 1,000 years ago, and they saw many vines, right? That you see now, and they call it Vineyard. It's true, this is the place where they say that they saw the vines, so Newfoundland. Then much later, European, here this is showing you that Europeans are trying to grow their grapes that they brought from Europe here. And this is one, this one certificate of a share of the first vineyard of Kentucky Vineyard, asking Kentucky Vineyard Society, making sure they know that they have a share. But the point here is to show you there is a big history of that in the US, but it failed for about 300 years. That we couldn't grow grapes here from Europe, okay? And the reason is, I'm not gonna go in details, but we have here native insects and diseases that are really good at attacking the European grapes, because those grapes in Europe have never seen those insect or disease. So phylloxera is one of them, making balls on this. So that would destroy European grapes. And we have most of the fungal disease in the world that people spray for are coming from here. So, if you're familiar, powder mildew, downy mildew, black rot, all of those have been the reason why we spend so much money in research trying to find a good way to control them, manage them. But they are the main, they are a big cost, and also in many ways they are a cost, right? For sustainability and also economically for the growers. We also have Pierce's disease, which is a bacterial disease, but I'm not going to talk about it. It's not actually in the grapes we have here, luckily, but it's a big problem in California. So in about 200 years ago, this is also, I like to have this story because kind of an old document. And so this is here, James Dufour, that was first thinking about growing American grapes, not European grapes. And this was much smarter because they are native from here, so they know they have been exposed to it, so they have some kind of resistance. Was more successful with that. If you're interested, like me, I'm very interested in the native species and herbaria and what's going on around here. We have an herbarium at UMass that you are welcome to visit. And I always bring my student there, and this is one of the, those old grapes here, 1894, and this is Vitis estevalis, so one of the species growing here. Okay, so you can also explore the herbarium online. So there is actually many very well-known people that are have been collecting grapes. It's fascinating to look at that. Anyway, so just okay. So now for the pruning, we need to know morphology of the grapes, right? So here we have, so this is, okay, we are in the spring, imagine we're in the spring, and then our little bud here that now we see in the field, it's a bud, has grown into a shoot. Okay, so here, into that shoot, okay? So now we are gonna see what at this node, one leaf coming that way, and then the next node, another leaf coming an alternate way. So the buds are gonna alternate as well in the field that you see. And what's interesting also is that opposite to the leaf, you might have one fruit here, another fruit here on the other side, or a tendril. And actually tendril are to hold on to the tree usually, and they are the same origin in the embryo, in the bud when it's forming. They are the same origin as the fruit. So sometimes you might see, usually you have 2 clusters per shoot. That's important to know because that's why we prune how we prune. But sometimes one of the tendril up there might change into a cluster. You might see like 3 clusters per shoot. Okay. So today, when we go to the field, of course, we don't have leaves or fruit, but we have that shoot that lost its leaf, and it's going to be, you know, however many buds, and we're going to look at that. And we have to prune those shoots, okay? And we might prune it about here to leave 3 buds. But those 3 buds that are for these colonies, okay? But this is for sure, we are looking at a trunk, okay? So even though it's a vine, we are trying to reproduce kind of a tree form in the field, right? So we grow a trunk and then, so I'll go over what is a cane and what is an arm, okay? But this is a trunk. Okay.
Is it better to have 1 trunk or 2?
That's a really great question. So for our climate, a lot of people grow 2 trunks, or they have like, it's like an inch trunk for the seed, so you have like a big small trunk in case you want that. So we grow 1 or 2 trunks, it depends on the vines, and so we have a replacement possible. But I'll show you that when we're on the field. They don't do that in places where it's warm, but as with cold climate, you have to have, you know, in case your trunks dies because of the cold, you know. Important to know that if you have a grape that is grafted, you don't want to grow, you have to know that, like, might come another trunk, another shoot might come from below the graft union, so you would be growing the rootstock, which is not a good idea. I mean, would not give you fruits, right? A lot of grapes here are not grafted because they are, the reason they are grafted usually is for that insect Phylloxera, and it's grafted onto an American grapes because American grapes are resistant. But if we use here like Market or Frontenac today, if we use those American grapes, they are resistant to Phylloxera, so they are not grafted. But you have to know that some of them it's still grafted for some reason. So it depends on your nursery. Okay.
But does it make a difference to the vine that only has 1 trunk versus the trunk splits into 2?
Not really. I mean, I would say just make sure that, and in the end, you want to make sure you spread out the foliage right, so there is, you know, that's, and you have the right number of fruits in it. So I think if you don't overbear, if you don't have too many fruits on your grapes, then that's okay. Yeah, it won't make a difference. Yes, yeah, so cordon. Okay, so here, so cordon is really, so what it is, it's a perennial part. So you see how it's clearly old wood, right? More than a year old. So, and then it's horizontal as opposed to the trunk, which is vertical. So I'm going over that because you might have, you know, when you do the training system, you might mean cordon. We talk about cordon. So cordon just means that those are like the horizontal perennial part of the wood of the grapes. Well, it's not a cane, it's a spur. So, okay. So because the reason, so a cane would be something that has not been pruned. It's the same thing. And a cane and spur are the same, but a spur is something that you cut to. And this is my next step actually. After my next step. Okay, so this is here we are talking about cane. It's the same thing. It's the wood. It's hard to see maybe, but the wood is 1 year old, so it's kind of a reddish and doesn't have this perennial wood. And it's not pruned, so this is a cane. Okay? So the spur is cut, and then the cane is long. Okay, so here, I think that's what you should kind of remember. Okay, so the trunk is here. And I didn't take the last board, I'm sorry. But, so we go with the trunk here. In these 2 vines, we have a trunk here, and then we have the cordon. Here, they like to kind of make them like humans, so it's a head here, or crown sometimes. The cordon, here we have an arm. So the arm is kind of sticking out of the cordon. But then there is exactly. So it's older than a year. So it's an arm. It's confusing. And then the spur is the less than a year old part that we will prune. Okay. So we don't want to prune arm or just to get cleaned up. Okay. But we are going to focus on the case today. And here is just a different training system. So we have a trunk and then a head and then a cane here that you train. So this is just a different pruning system. Some pruning system, they just like to have longer cane, and some pruning system they cut the cane to about 2 to 3 buds. But in the end, they want the same number of buds. But what I want you to remember is really that we are going to focus on the less than a year old case. Okay. So here it's actually where we will be today. We have for some reason okay. So spur and cane, that was your question. Remember, it was yours. But yeah, so a spur is basically a cane that is cut. Okay, so you can see those canes, and basically in the end, what we are trying to do is get them to about 2 or 3 buds, depending how many of those we have on the linear foot of form. Okay, so there's no like recipe really. You have to adjust depending on your vine. So that's what we're going to do today. Is that making sense? All right. So today I have those for you, like those blades. I fit myself with it too. But this is the blades is to when we are going to be there. We come back here a little bit and we cut through those buds to see what's inside. But you should see the compound bud, which is 3 buds in 1 bud. Okay. That's important. Why? It's because the primary bud here is the most fruitful. So if that is dead, the secondary bud will take on. And if that is dead, the tertiary bud will, secondary here and tertiary here. I guess they call it 2 secondary. Okay, I have 2. But so the secondary will come after the first is dead, and then the tertiary will come after the second is dead. So it's kind of an insurance for the vines to get its shoot out and enough foliage out at least. But the fruits that are going to come out are not going to be, depends on the variety, but you won't get as much fruits from if you have an injured bud. So today, when we look, I want really you to look at whether it's alive or dead, like whether it's primary or not. We won't go too much into that, but you'll cut through those buds and you'll see whether it's alive or not. And we have to adjust because we had cold snap in December and the vines were not dormant yet. So we might have a lot of injury. And so we have to adjust the pruning because of that. So here you can see, so this is in the spring, we'll get this bud and then it becomes a shoot. You can see the baby flowers here. They are not open yet. And then this is still a flower, not really pollinated yet. Okay. If it's injured, if the buds can estimate the bud injury, which we today, let's say there is like 50% dead. So then we need twice as much, so 8 on continent. I don't expect continent to be that bad because it's very cold resistant, but mineral. Okay, so if you see 50% death on your bud, you need twice as many. Okay. And that depends on your variety. So for Frontenac, for this age, it's very complex. Kind of, you can go, if you are growing for business, you really wanted to have exactly the pH and the sugar at a certain amount. So you would actually take into account the vigor of the vine, etc. Here, just to make it simple, in general, 4 per foot you are having. Okay, so 4 live bud per foot, per linear foot. Okay, it will make sense when we are doing it there too. Okay, so now training system. So the part that is going to bear the fruits, which is canes or the spurs, depending on your training system, they need to be distributed right? So when we prune, we can see, okay, we don't want to put all of this, like 4 buds here and 0 here, right? We spread things out so they get the sun, and also they don't get as many diseases. Okay, so you want to stretch your, spread your cane or prune the best way, your future shoots. So the trunks and those bearing units, you want to space them out so you have the least amount of competition between them. Okay, so today we're going to work with Frontenac. It's spaced a little bit more than others you will see because it's a very vigorous grape. Okay. So in any case, so all of those, the pruning, the training and the pruning, we are going to work so that we basically minimize the competition, minimize the amount of competition between leaves and disease, and maximize the the spread. Okay, so that they all have enough sun to mature the fruits and less disease. Okay, this is your question about double trunk. So the amount of wood that you leave is important to know that if you had only one trunk, maybe you're gonna die and then you're left with nothing. So you need to think about the potential injury from winter. Basically, if you think about training system, you think about 4 main categories, and within that, many people created their own and put their name, people like to do that. But really, you have 4 different types. So here, a head and some spurs. Okay, so very tiny. So those are basically tiny arms with the spurs, but really it looks very bushy. So this is bush, and this is typical of Zinfandel. They do that in the Central Valley in California because they don't need to take care too much of it. Those vines are pretty happy without, not much wetness. And here you have basically a trunk and then a head and a cane. Okay, just one cane. This is called guyot. This is Bordeaux in my region, where we typically would have that. Then what we'll have today is here, there is no head, but there is cordon instead. Okay, so cordon and spurs, or you could have cordon and canes. Okay, and so those are different names. So silvos, don't worry too much about that, but you will see a lot of different names for training system. I think what you should focus on is that a head or is that a cordon? And then is it a spur or is it a cane? Okay, so basically 4 different combinations. This is what they look like in the winter. So this is here head spur, head cane. I don't know if you can see with the light. Here cordon spur, which is what we're going to do today. You can all see. And then cordon cane. Okay, so head and spur, just to show you in the season how it looks, making sure because it's getting to the time. So all Zinfandel here, one of my favorite wine. So here in the winter and in the summer, and here this is head cane winter and summer. This is cordon spur winter and summer, maybe in the middle. And then here cordon cane winter and summer. So in summer it's hard to see sometimes, but you can see the different crowdiness of the different training system. Okay, so the pruning criteria. So today I'm going to give you each pencils, also to write on your paper, but also to have that as a measurement. So you want to target pencil size cane. Okay, so we're going to, those cane are going to be the ones with the most fruit. Okay, so we want those, if they are bull cane, they won't give you as many fruits. Usually we get rid of suckers. Let's see. So those are called the suckers. They come from the trunk. So we kind of clean up things. So I'll show you that in the field as well. But we don't want, except for maybe one trunk extra if we need, we don't want to really have those. If you want to see if it's alive, this is why you have your blade. So you can see if the tissue of your cane is alive or not. And that's, okay. So this is, you just peel out the first layer. But here, what we're going to do today is also check bud injury. So we're going to cut the bud in the middle. So this is, we are not going to cut it that way, but this is here the green tissue showing a live bud. And here you can see the difference. So when you're going to cut your buds today, you're going to see a primary, secondary, and tertiary. And so those are alive. Here, this is dead, and those are all dead here. Okay, so they are dried out. Does it make sense? You'll practice and you'll see. But okay, so when you do this, and you'll have the slides sent to people right now. Okay, so when you do the bud injury, so this is a lot of text, but so that people have that in record. We take a piece of a cane. We kind of cut it after the third bud. We take that cane and we can take a lot of them, like we take 100 usually. And you always look at the same bud position from the base, right? So bud position 1, let's say 400 cane, and you look at them and then you say, okay, 10% of that is dead, that's fine. If, you know, as long as it's less than 20% of that, those being dead, it's fine, don't adjust your pruning. If it's between 20 and 80, adjust accordingly, right? So 50%, put twice, okay? So you just have to adjust. So we do a count today, but just for people online that you have that in record, okay?
I have a question. When you're pruning the, you know, where on the shoot or the vine do you cut? Is it before a bud, after a bud? You know, where do you physically make the cuts?
Yes, great question. So when you take your, so you see me here, when you take your bud, so you have your shoot here, okay, and then you have a bud coming out here. So basically, you want to make a cut that is kind of you can put your thumb horizontally here, so that you have enough space above the bud so it doesn't dry out. Also, there is, you want to make sure your cut is letting the water go, not on the bud, right? So you kind of cut like this if your bud is there, right? You see me on the camera?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah. So you want to make sure you orient your cut so that you don't have the water going onto the bud, because then it's potentially disease.
So you want to keep the water off the buds, so you cut it as an angle again.
Yeah, at an angle, exactly. Okay. Yeah, yeah. And I have to be honest, I don't pay attention to that too much when I do the pruning. I just, you know, when I'm in the middle of doing it, I do it kind of automatically, but sometimes it's not, you know, it's okay. Like the angle is not right, but in general, it's a good practice to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other question?
What are the most common pathologies?
Oh my God, yeah, that's amazing question. I love this. Yeah, so black rot is a huge problem that, you know, people call me or email me most about. So black rot is when you're at the end of the season, you have these berries that are all shriveled and stay on the cluster. They don't come out. And yeah, that's a disease that we have to deal with. It's a fungus. So people use typical fungicide. You can use, you know, sulfur if you're organic. So that's one thing that people are really, and also you can also get rid of those clusters on the vine. So they are the source of inoculum for next year. We have also powdery mildew, which is also a fungus. So you can get rid of it with sulfur as well. If you're organic, there is also other chemicals. And there is also downy mildew, which is more of a problem because downy mildew is not a fungus. So it's a different chemistry for getting rid of those type of diseases. So, but yeah, those are the 3 culprits, and they are all over the world, and they all come from New England. So, yeah. So that's a great. I love this because this is what I study.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the grape clusters. How many clusters should you have, like, per running foot of vine, and how to increase the size of the grapes? You know, I had planted a bunch of vines 3 years ago, and they were supposed to be seedless grapes. And last year was the first year that we actually had sizable grapes, and they had seeds in them. And I don't know if that's something that the grape outgrows or not, and was hoping you could comment on that.
Yeah, no, I saw at seeds. I think it's not gonna change.
Okay.
So that's probably you contact the nursery for that. Maybe ask a replacement if you want to start over. And then for the number of clusters per linear foot of cordon or linear foot, so I'd say in general 4 shoots, so 4 buds per foot. Okay, so each bud gives you 2 clusters, which means 8 clusters per foot. But now we don't see the clusters, so we are looking with buds. So you like to target maybe 8 clusters per foot of growing grape, if that makes sense. Okay, so then you will get twice as many clusters as buds.